Chapter 341. Threat. You don't have to be nervous. Your identity is well concealed. I couldn't find anything. Perhaps you have forgotten that I am one of your millions of clients? Speaking of this, I have to thank you. If it's not for you, I would not be standing here today. If you don't accept my apology, I have to reveal your identity. Zero is famous internationally, but there are so many killers who want to find you. Do you know what I'm talking about? Chao Shen smiled. Although Ayn Rand was famous internationally, many well-known gangs had invited her to hypnotize them. After a long time in the underworld, it was inevitable that she'd have enemies that would want to kill her. It wasn't just those in the same industry. There were also gangs, so there were always people asking about her. After being in the underworld for so long, she would inevitably cause trouble, which was why she had concealed her tracks so well. Even after such a long time, I can still recognize you. It's useless even if you deny it. You can say that I'm just being stubborn, but I hope you will be smart. He had been diagnosed with depression abroad before and was very depressed. Just as he was about to commit suicide, Zero saved him. Although he hadn't seen her real appearance, he had always remembered her eyes. Hence, the first time he saw her, he would inevitably remember her bright eyes. There was no news about Zero, but he was certain that he had seen her. I don't like anyone threatening me. I'm just curious, why did you choose me? She didn't expect anything in return, but she didn't want to be threatened like this. Back then, she saved him and didn't hurt him. Now, the act of a farmer and a snake actually happened to her. She was a little puzzled, but looking at Chao Shen, she didn't think he was such a person. Since you saved me, I have always regarded you as my goal. I could smell Chinese medicine on you, and even though I studied Western medicine, I changed because of you. I know you have a medicine that smells good. Later, I found the medicine and used to make some makeup, which soothed the wounds on my skin. I hope you will accept my challenge because I will definitely defeat you. I had researched medicine for several years and had been made a world-famous medicine because of the Chinese herbs. He would definitely surpass Ayn Rand. Ayn Rand suddenly remembered who he was. A few years ago, she was walking along the streets after her treatment for a foreigner when she suddenly saw a person wanting to jump off the river. She went over and pulled him back. She found him to be depressed and violent, so she hypnotized him on the spot. She noticed a deep and long gash on his cheek that was covered by his long hair. It was extremely ugly. She walked into his subconscious and realized that it was a scar left behind by his stepmother. It had followed him for a long time and no one wanted to be his friend. Even his father despised him, which was why he had been depressed. After Ayn Rand finished treating him, she took out the condensate scent and smeared it all over his scars. She also gave him a small box, presumably because of it. It's the reason why he chose her. But I don't know any cosmetic research and development. The incense I gave you was just a coincidence. It happened to contain one of the medicines that can heal wounds, but it isn't anything to do with cosmetics. It just has an effect. If you want to beat me, you don't have to use a method I'm not good at. It wouldn't be honorable if you won like this. Anna felt that there was a loophole and she wouldn't accept such an unreasonable request. Medicinal makeup is actually very simple. Some Chinese herbs have beauty-enhancing effects, which can depend on your usage. You just need to hand the prescription to Mo Zhenrong and he'll help you with the rest. The reason why I agreed to the Qin family is because of you. Chao Shen was a little agitated, attracting the attention of the students behind him. He took out his phone and placed a finger on the send button. There was a long edited message on the phone, which probably said that he knew where Zero was. With a slight move of his finger, he would send the message to the entire internet. Even people abroad would see it because he had uploaded it into the international web. Wait a minute, since you want to bet, let's set a rule. If I lose, I will transfer 10 million yuan to you. If you lose, you'll have to join the Mo family. Since he wanted to gamble, she would make a big one. She couldn't let it go to waste. Chao Shen hesitated. He might not be able to betray the Qin family if he lost. He was just about to refuse when Qin Taiyan appeared behind him. I agree. The Qin family will never lose. Qin Taiyan stepped forward and said, Young Master Qin, what brings you here today? Anran glanced at him angrily. After all, his sister had tried to seduce her husband, so she naturally wouldn't like him kindly. I'm here to find you. Business is business. I hope that you can let Mojurong visit Shuer. Ever since she was discharged from the hospital, she has been depressed. It's all because of Mojurong. I hope you can persuade him to visit my sister. Qin Taiyan was sincere as he saw his sister hurting. Anran suddenly smiled and thought that there was such a person in the world. Your sister tried to seduce my husband, but was rejected and ended up in a depressed state. You actually want my husband to visit her? Do you think I would give a vixen a chance to advance? Your sister's tolerance isn't high, and if she wants to seduce someone, she'll have to bear the consequences too. My husband has no obligation to bear the responsibility. Don't you find it hilarious that you're saying this to me right now? Anran's words were filled with sarcasm, as though every word was mocking Qin, implying that she deserved it. Qin Taiyan felt that she wasn't as cute as the first time that they met during the exam. His impression of her had been completely deteriorated. He clenched his fists and wanted to punch her, but he restrained himself. Anran, don't go overboard. My sister is in the wrong, but is Mojurong innocent? Everyone says that he doesn't get close to women. If he doesn't like my sister, why would he give her false chances? My sister is still young and has undergone surgery. How can she endure this kind of hurt? Qin Taiyan, I know that you think your sister is a victim and it is pitiful, but still young. How is she young? Is her chest smaller than mine? You spoiled your sister Ron. Even if she's ill and has undergone surgery, she shouldn't be like this today. Did she seduce someone else's husband because she isn't sensible? A father's mistakes are his own. You should ask your father why things ended up like this. Anran insulted Qin Taiyan to death. Don't look at me because of such things again. If your sister is sick, go to the psychologist instead of looking for my man here to seek her comfort. I have classes, so I won't be chatting with you. Anran didn't give any face and turned to leave. Qin Taiyan was furious and also left. Chapter 342. The Confrontation at the School Entrance. The final exams were in a few days, and Yaxin wasn't like Anran. She had to work hard. Just as she was immersed in the joy of earning money and was prepared to pick up her book, she suddenly saw news on the school forum. She didn't know why there were rumors about her in school. She had never had a boyfriend, didn't run away while pregnant, and didn't have a gangster friend. She couldn't tolerate such accusations online. Yaxin decided to clear her name on the forums, but most of the people half believed her, so she cried out in grievance. Oh my goodness, what happened to you? Xu Yanshan saw that she was crying and hurriedly went forward to check on her. Mom, Anran must have spread rumors about me. What will the people in the school think of me now? Damn it, let's go find her. Xu Yanshan pulled Yaxin to look for Anran. Anran stopped at the gate by Xu Yanshan just after school. She wanted to teach her a lesson in front of as many students as possible. Lord Anran, stop right there. Xu Yanshan didn't have good intentions, and her voice was loud, attracting the attention of many classmates. The battle between the two school beauties wasn't something that could be seen often, so many people started to take pictures on their phones. Ah, what made you so angry? Anran's innocent expression made Xu Yanshan even more furious. What? Don't you know it yourself? Do you think it's appropriate for an older sister to bully her younger sister like this? Xu Yanshan pointed at Anran's forehead and scolded. Anran was confused and asked, What are you saying, Aunt? I didn't bully Yaxin. Ha! A countryside girl doesn't know what kind of person she is. Do you think you're a big shot just because you married Mojurong because of your looks? Let me ask you, are you the one who spread the rumors about Yaxin in school? My daughter has done nothing of such a thing. Xu Yanshan wanted to prove her daughter's innocence in front of as many people as possible. At the same time, she wanted to show everyone how malicious Anran was. Aunt, you're accusing me. Do you have any proof that I did it? You know Yaxen's temper. She is arrogant, and she has many enemies in the school. How could you say that it's me? Are you saying that because you're prejudiced against me? Anran was upset. You still don't want to admit it? Who else could it be? Yaxen has always been well behaved and never done such a thing. Don't you accuse her? Do you know what will happen to her future? You really have a malicious heart. I think this is all of the bad habits you learned from the countryside. It's the only thing you know how to do after so many years. Shi Yanchen attacked Anran. Sis, we didn't have any grievances. Why are you treating me like this? Yaxen pretended to cry. Yaxen, you must be mistaken. I didn't know about this at all. Yanran suffered the same thing as you, and we still don't know who did it. The internet says that it was Yanran's sister, but I didn't. Could it be... Anran glanced at Yaxen. What nonsense are you saying? Yaxen didn't do such a thing. Yes, someone must be spreading rumors. Yanran is a popular celebrity now. There must be someone who wants a piece of the pie. Shi Yanchen felt guilty and didn't dare to look at Anran in the eye. You're right. Someone must have spread rumors and framed her. I sympathize with what happened to her, but I can't do anything about it. The rumors will pass in a few days. You don't have to worry about it. Anran smiled and turned to leave, but Shi Yanchen grabbed her arm. That's easy for you to say. What will the people here think of Yaxen? Have you considered her situation? Aunt, I really didn't do it. If you want me to admit to those things, then you want to admit that you used Yanran for your benefit. Anran's meaningful smile frightened them. It has nothing to do with us. Shi Yanchen would never admit that she did it. She wanted to retort, but was stopped by Yaxen. She looked at Anran angrily. At that moment, she couldn't wait to pounce on her and rip her apart. But she had to pretend to be understanding and walk up to hold Anran's hand while crying. Sis, I really didn't do it. If you have anything against me, I will change. But this matter has been spreading like wildfire in the school, and I will try to explain it to you. Anran turned and looked at the sympathetic expressions of her classmates toward her, which immediately made her appeal on Yaxen's behalf. Students, my sister didn't do such things. Please believe her. Anran's passionate explanation didn't have much of a reaction, and the crowd were still discussing amongst themselves. Anran turned to look at Yaxen in resignation. Look, sis, they didn't believe my explanation, so you should explain it yourself. I'm in a hurry to see Jinrong. Let's talk when we get home. Anran brushed her hand aside and turned to leave. Yaxen shouted in the crowd, I was framed. I didn't do any of those things. The surrounding classmates looked at her strangely, and she could feel every pair of eyes piercing into her body. Then Anran... The wound in Yaxen's heart grew bigger and bigger. She clenched her fist and tears streamed down her face. She hated this woman to the core. Shi Yanchen continued to shout at the crowd, This is a misunderstanding. Someone is spreading rumors about their envy to my daughter. Please don't believe it. My daughter is so beautiful. Why would she do such things? She dismissed the crowd as she spoke. Yaxen dragged her mother out of the crowd and over to the side and spoke fiercely. Mom, I'm going to snatch Mo Jinrong over. Yes, go and snatch him away. That brat is going to die in our hands. Shi Yanchen supported her daughter's idea. She had never suffered like this before, and now she was being bullied by this brat every day. Meanwhile, Mo Jinrong was discussing what to do with old Mrs. Mo. Grandma, did you receive any calls? Mo Jinrong thought about it for a long time before asking the question. No, I had a call just now, but it was me who called my old friends. Did something happen? Old Mrs. Mo looked at Mo Jinrong with a frown. He looked as though he had something difficult to say. Did you quarrel with Anran again? You're not allowed to bully her. What happened last time was way overboard. You can't do anything overboard again. Old Mrs. Mo reminded him. No, Grandma, it's not that. It's just... You must tell me if Uncle calls, Mo Jinrong said solemnly. Chapter 343, A Plan. Old Mrs. Mo was shocked, her old wrinkly face full of surprise. You mean he's really alive? Did young master make a mistake? He disappeared so many years ago. How could he still be alive? If he is, why didn't he come back to find old Mrs. Mo? Nanny Wu was also surprised. Her question was the same as what old Mrs. Mo was thinking. I didn't make a mistake. I heard Uncle's voice clearly today. He didn't die, and he asked me to pass on a message. He will meet us here in 3 days' time. Mojran didn't want to tell old Mrs. Mo about it, but he was afraid something would happen, so he decided to tell her. He really isn't dead? He's still alive? Old Mrs. Mo's face was trembled. She was clearly in disbelief. Why hasn't he returned all these years? Old Mrs. Mo cried. To her, she had already lost 2 sons. The rebirth of her son was like her hope. She had never felt so happy and excited like today. Grandma, it's been so many years and none of us knows what happened to Uncle. We should be careful. It seems that he's hiding something from us. Old Mrs. Mo reminded her. Old Mrs. Mo wiped her tears and said with certainty, That's impossible. He may not be my biological son, but I understand him. I treated him like my biological son. He wouldn't hurt the Mo family or me. Don't worry. Mojran couldn't bear to expose the truth to old Mrs. Mo, so he told her that his uncle had changed. Old Mrs. Mo, you should always be careful, Mo-san reminded her. Nanny Wu, I will be organizing a banquet in 3 days. Get the kitchen to prepare the ingredients for the banquet. I still remember all his favorite foods. I'll write down the recipes later and you can buy the ingredients. Old Mrs. Mo was obviously very happy. Although she didn't know why her son had been avoiding her all these years, she believed that he wouldn't change. But then the butler came in to report. Oh, Mrs. Mo, young madam is here. Hurry and invite her. I want to tell her the good news. Old Mrs. Mo was overjoyed. Her grandson and granddaughter-in-law were both here, and her son was also coming back. This was a double blessing. Grandma, what made you so happy? Anna carried a bag of crisp peanuts and placed it on the table. When she saw old Mrs. Mo smile, she thought that something joyous must have happened. You can tell it's great news. Your uncle is coming back and he's really alive. He is the Mo Shengli I told you about. Old Mrs. Mo held her hand and smiled warmly. Edmund was stunned, turning to look at Mojran. Their eyes met and she understood what happened. Grandma, I bought these peanut crisps especially for you. You should have finished the last packet, right? I'm guessing you would love to have some more. Anna smiled and unwrapped the peanut crisp, stuffing a small piece into her mouth. Old Mrs. Mo chewed happily. Grandma, I'm a little hungry. Do you have anything to eat? Anna spoke deliberately. Greedy little kitten. I'll get someone to prepare it. Speaking of which, I'm a little hungry too. I'll get the kitchen staff to prepare dinner for us. You have a chat with Junrong first. Old Mrs. Mo stood up impatiently. Old Mrs. Mo stood up impatiently and went to the kitchen. Junrong, that mysterious person gave me 3 days to find your title deed. I thought of a compromise. And then gave Mojran an idea. Mojran nodded with a smile. Aren't you afraid that he'll be embarrassed? I'm only in charge of searching, not examining. That won't be my fault. I have no choice either. Will you cooperate with me? Emran Salman said. Will there be a reward for cooperating? Mojran missed their previous kisses. He had been abstinent for so many years, so it felt good to kiss her. Without a word, Emran pulled Mojran and kissed him on the lips. Wow! Mojran watched from behind in excitement and jealousy. Young master, young madam, you... Shut up! Mojran turned and glanced at him. Then he looked at the woman with a loving smile. That's more like it, but I want more after this is done. It was the first time Anran felt that Mojran was behaving like a gangster. Hooligan, let's think about our next step. Grandma is so happy now. I can't bear to tell her the truth that the mysterious person is actually Mo Shengli. Grandma will be upset to know that her son has become like this. Anran was a little sad at the thought. I'm guessing that he is here to meet Grandma because he is certain he'll succeed in something in 3 days. Mojran was actually a little worried. If his uncle really did anything to hurt the Mo family, he would have to arrest him personally. He didn't want to. Compared to Mo Chengwen, he preferred his uncle. After all, he was one of the people who treated him the best in his childhood. When the time comes, I will cause a stir in the company. If you want to wipe us out, you'll have to arrest me mercilessly so that he'll believe you, Anran reminded him. But, no buts, we're doing this for the company. Don't worry, I will find a way. Anran comforted him. Old Mrs. Mo had instructed the kitchen to prepare ingredients and returned to the front hall happily. Anne ran, Junong, wait a while more. It'll be done soon. Grandma, the court will be announcing Uncle Chang Wen's verdict, and they are asking if you want to come. Mo Junong suddenly remembered that they had asked a few days ago. But because he was busy with the company, he hadn't told old Mrs. Mo about it. No, I have never given birth to such an unfiled son. The thought of her son made old Mrs. Mo's heart ache. She had given up ever since he was sent to prison. Grandma, Uncle wants the Mo Corporation, but he is sincere towards you. He wants to hurt me, but I have forgiven him. After all, he is in jail. And Anne had forgiven him. After all, in her past life, he was mainly targeting Mo Junong, and she had helped him before. This time it was her retribution, so she didn't blame him after he was sent to prison. And then you're a good child, but I can't forgive myself. It's my fault for not educating him well, causing him to kill so many people and almost killing you. Junong, you can tell me the results after the court session. Old Mrs. Mo spoke calmly. Chapter 344. The child is here again. Grandma, there isn't much news about Aunt recently. Should we inform her? Mo Junong asked. You'll have to ask him yourself. After all, she has been married to Mo Chang Wen for more than 30 years, and she has a son. Ever since the incident, I heard that the child has become depressed and introverted. It's all my fault. Old Mrs. Mo took the responsibility again. As the saying goes, the fault of the father is the fault of the children. Since her husband passed away, the responsibility was naturally hers. Suddenly, the old housekeeper hurried in. Old Mrs. Mo, young master, there's trouble. The woman who caused trouble the other time is here with her child again. She's making a fuss at the door, yelling that she wants to enter. We can't stop her. That child? How unlucky. Old Mrs. Mo didn't want to look at them, but they appeared in front of her. Aren't they just here to annoy her? Let them in. Mo Junong wanted to see what they're up to. The moment she finished speaking, the two of them rushed in with miserable expressions. Li Fang wore tattered clothes and covered in dirt as she walked in. She started to cry when she saw old Mrs. Mo. Mom, I know that we were in the wrong last time, but please take us in. Chang Wen is in prison, and I don't have any abilities, so I can't support yous at all. This child is still young and is in the midst of studying. Look at how skinny he has become. He is the flesh and blood of the Mo family, and it doesn't matter how much you don't like me, but please accept him as your grandson. What a joke. These past few days, I thought you ran away with your son because you despised my son's imprisonment. Now you know how to beg to me? Weren't you the one who cursed me to die? I said it before, the Mo family has only Mo Junong and Mo Yang. An illegitimate son isn't worthy to enter the Mo family. Old Mrs. Mo had a disgusted expression on his face and wanted to chase them away. Mo Junong's gaze landed on Mo Yu's. He seemed to be about 10 years old. Although he was disheveled and had a dirty appearance, his arrogant attitude was still there, and there was an air of cockiness in his bones. Are you Mo Yu's? Why aren't you saying anything? Mo Junong asked. My dad said I shouldn't bow my head and beg for mercy. You child, it's already so late. Are you still listening to your father? If you don't plead, we won't even have anything to eat. Li Fang hit his head and reproached him. Grandma, in my opinion, we should give them some money and let them lead a good life. After all, they are Uncle's children, and we can't treat them poorly. Grandma, if you don't like it, treat it as a form of financial support for impoverished children, and that way we can do some good deeds. Anne persuaded old Miss Mo. In her past life, she didn't have much interaction with the mother and son. She only heard that Mo Chang Wen had an illegitimate child and didn't pay much attention to it. Now that she saw that the child was still young, it would be a pity if he became a beggar. Old Mrs. Mo thought about it and agreed. After all, he was Mo Chang Wen's son. Although she didn't like him, what's done is done. I heard that he bought you a house. It's in Shu Pei's neighborhood. I can give you a sum of money. You can use this money to raise your child well. Chang Wen has committed such a serious crime. He probably won't be able to come back. From now on, you can do whatever you want. However, you are not allowed to step foot in here again. You're not allowed to do anything outside the law under the Mo family's name. Li Fang came over today to beg old Mrs. Mo to accept her son, though she didn't expect her to be so stubborn. Since she was going to give her a sum of money, it would be wasteful if she didn't accept it. Previously, when Mo Chang-wen was around, Li Fang could do whatever she wanted. Now that the family was in trouble, she could only give in. After all, it was always good to have a son by her side. She nodded in agreement. Old Mrs. Mo got Nanny Wu to take out a check and wrote down an 8-digit 0, giving it to Li Fang. This is a string of numbers is enough to last you for the rest of your life. I'm not going to give you this sum of money for you to squander, but to raise your child well and make him an outstanding person. If you spend this money early, the Mo family will definitely not give you any more money. You're on your own now. Old Mrs. Mo felt that she had done all she could, and it was her bottom line not to accept him into the Mo family. Li Fang looked at the string of zeros and was stunned. Mo Chang-wen had never given her so much money. Thank you, old Mrs. Mo. Is Chang-wen really not coming back? She had some extravagant hope that Mo Chang-wen would treat her really well. He has committed such a serious crime. Do you think his life is equal to those several lives? If you're willing, you can wait. If not, you can find another family. If this has nothing to do with the Mo family, you can leave. Old Mrs. Mo spoke expressionlessly. Mo Yu stared at his high and mighty grandmother the entire time. The look in his eyes wasn't one of hope or for familiar love, but one of extreme coldness. Old Mrs. Mo saw that the child had an unfriendly gaze, which made her uncomfortable. Let's go, Yus. Li Fang pulled Mo Yus and turned to leave. Anne saw the child's eyes had a cold emotion mixed in with disappointment and sadness. She was a little upset. It was the same feeling as being abandoned in her past life. She used to think that everyone was hurting her and didn't love her, which is why she did so many hurtful things. Mo Yus, your world doesn't lack with us. There will always be someone who will love you, even if they aren't us. You have to have kindness in your heart. Ayn Rand suddenly called out to him and shared her thoughts. Mo Yus was stunned for a few seconds before he was dragged away by Li Fang. Why did you say that to him? No, Junrong was curious. Ayn Rand didn't seem like the type of person to say such things. In the past, when I was sent to the countryside, I would often wonder if my parents didn't love me, and that's why they treated me like this. My gaze was identical to his, but later on, I gradually understood that they didn't have any choice. When I saw him today, it's like I could see myself. I was a little touched. Ayn Rand spoke sincerely. Ayn Rand, you are a kind girl. Grandma knows that he is innocent, but he can't enter the Mo family. In the past, because of Mo Shengli, Grandma hated mistresses the most. I have already accepted an illegitimate child. I don't have the magnanimity to accept another one. Old Mrs. Mo knew that it hurt a child to not allow them into the family, but she couldn't get over it. Grandma, I understand. You don't have to blame yourself. I don't think they will cause trouble again in the future. Ayn Rand smiled and said. Just then, there was news from the kitchen that the food was ready. Due to the serious events that happened today, old Mrs. Mo didn't eat much and left the two of them at the dining table. After eating, Mo Junrong prepared to send Ayn Rand back. Junrong, do you think I could get into the Medical Research Institute? Ayn Rand asked deliberately. Mo Junrong nodded slightly. Of course. Remember to make an appointment with Zero for me. Chapter 345. The Wrong Son. At the Lan family, Lan Ting-young had been busy recently and only knew what happened when he heard the young nurses in the hospital discussing Yan Ran. He hurriedly called his son to ask what was going on. Hello, Yan Ran, what happened? Why are so many people scolding you online? Yan Ran didn't want to explain anymore. He was tired of being questioned today, so he spoke impatiently. You should ask Aunt. Yan Ran hung up angrily. Ting-young had gotten out of the surgery and he was confused. Suddenly, everything went black and he felt dizzy before he fell to the ground. Liu happened to be on duty. She knew that the incident with Yaren was all Xu Yanchan's fault and was preparing to reason with her when Xu Yanchan called right then. Yiro, come back to Ting-young after work today. Mom and I have something to talk to you about. Lyra was thinking about what happened today. Since she called, they would be discussing it. She looked at her watch. It was almost time to get off work. She was prepared to find Ting Young. Suddenly, someone barged in and they spoke hurriedly. Vice Director Lee, Director Lan had just fainted during the surgery. Vice Director Lee, Director Lan has fainted after doing the surgery. Lyra didn't have time to say anything. She put down the phone and ran to the emergency room. On the phone, Xu Yanshan was overjoyed to hear that Ting Young had fainted. This way, Anran wouldn't be in the mood to care about them anymore, so she could do whatever she wanted. She immediately told Zhao Shumi the news. Mom, Ting Young fainted in the hospital. Do you think he's seriously ill? Xu Yanshan couldn't wait for Ting Young to develop some kind of cancer so she could have her revenge smoothly. What, Ting Young is ill? Zhao Shumi wasn't worried at all, but was secretly delighted. With her second child ill, she could naturally take over the hospital and get in touch with Mo Junrong. Ting Young's illness is such a bad thing. Your birthday is about to arrive, and I'm afraid that the birthday banquet will be held in the hospital. Xu Yanshan looked worried, but inside she was overjoyed. It's alright. Ting Young is ill, and as his mother, I should visit him. Wouldn't that mean that the hospital is short of people? I may be old, but I was a director in the past. So it won't be a problem if I become the acting director. Zhao Shumi was overjoyed. Mom, Anran probably doesn't know about this. Let's go to the hospital and inform her at the same time. If Ting Young is seriously ill, won't you be able to take over the hospital? They happily agreed with one another and headed to the hospital. The moment Anran reached home, she received a call from Xu Yanshan. Anran, your dad fainted in the hospital. Come and take a look. Aunt, what are you trying to do? My dad is in good health. Why could he have fainted? Anran clearly didn't believe her. Heard it from your mom. He might be sent to the emergency room. If you don't believe me, you can go to the hospital to have a look. If he gets seriously ill, you'll have to still take care of him. Xu Yanshan spoke her happiest words with a sorrowful tone. Ha, you're the one who's seriously ill. Anran hurriedly hung up on the phone and called her mother. Mom, what happened? Why did Aunt say that Dad fainted in the hospital? Anran anxiously looked for an answer. I don't know either. Your dad was fine in the hospital, but he fainted the moment he left the operating room. Don't worry, he has been sent to the emergency room. He'll be fine. Lyra didn't know if she was comforting Anran or herself, but she started to cry as she spoke. When Anran heard her mother crying, she became even more anxious. Without thinking, she drove to the hospital. When Yaxin heard that Ting Young had fainted in the hospital, she immediately thought it was a good opportunity to seduce Mo Junrong. She took the bottle of yellow medicine, placed it in a bag, and carried it to the hospital. In the hospital, Ting Young had been in the emergency room for more than 20 minutes. Lyra waited anxiously at the door. Suddenly, the lights in the emergency went off, and several doctors walked out. They took off their masks with dark expressions. Old Lee, is old Lan alright? Director Lan just performed an operation that took almost 11 hours. He didn't eat or drink anything, and was just very tired. Of course he couldn't take it. In addition, he doesn't usually rest, and his irregular meals cause him to have a serious gastric illness. Just now, it was a gastric attack, and suddenly he had intense pain that caused him to faint. Now, his life is no longer in danger, but the details can be determined after the inspection report is out. Li Gong was also a doctor at the hospital. He completed the surgery at Ting Young, but he switched shifts with another doctor midway. Ting Young alone supported the entire surgery, which took more than 11 hours. A person's body couldn't bear it. Ting Young was attached to a drip and an oxygen tube as he was pushed out of the emergency room. His face was pale as he laid in the hospital bed. Ting Young! Ting Young! Lyra called out for him softly, but Ting Young reacted weakly. Lyra was only halfway through letting go of her worries. She still had to wait for the test results. She followed him to the intensive care unit on the bed. Anna was the second to arrive. She was anxious when she saw her father being wheeled out in a hospital bed. Mom, Dad, what's wrong? It's alright. Your dad is just too tired and passed out from hypoglycemia. Lyra pretended to be calm as she comforted her daughter. She didn't want her to be worried. Anran went up and felt Ting Young's pulse. His pulse wasn't strong and was very weak in all aspects, especially his bowel and cerebrovascular vessels. Ayn could barely feel them, she found. This could very well be gastric, cardiac, or cerebrovascular disease. She was panicking. She ran over to the doctor and grabbed his hand tightly. "Uncle Lee, I am begging you to save my father." Li Gong comforted her when he saw her. "Don't worry, I've done the necessary checks, but the results aren't out yet. I'll let you know if I hear anything later." Ayn followed the bed into the intensive care unit. She had been busy with the Mo family these past few days and lacked concern for her parents. She didn't expect them to be like this. She was such an unfiled child. Xu Yanchen and Zhao Shumi ran to the hospital emergency room in a hurry. Coincidentally, a man covered in a white cloth was pushed out. The two of them thought it was Ting Young and went over to cry. "Son, you have died so tragically. I didn't get to see you one last time. How did you disappear?" Zhao Shumi cried miserably with tears streaming down her face. Xu Yanchen squeezed out a few tears and threw herself in front of the corpse. Chapter 346, She Will Heal Him. Ting Young, how could you bear to abandon your children in Euro? What are you going to do? Zhao Shumi's cry echoed throughout the entire corridor. Li Euro, who was in the intensive care unit, heard their cries and wiped her own tears. She walked out of the room and was instantly speechless when she saw the two of them lying on someone else's corpse, their eyes red from crying. As a mother, shouldn't she verify if it was her son's corpse? "Mom, you're so pitiful, widowed at such a young age." Xu Yanchen continued to cry. My son isn't around anymore. We must express our condolences to those who are still alive. You definitely won't be able to hold out in the hospital for the next few days. I didn't treat my son well when he was alive, but now that he's gone, I must do something for him. You should just help my son with his funeral. This hospital. Old thing, my dad isn't dead yet, but you still want to get your hands on the hospital? You can't even recognize your own son? You don't deserve to be a mother. Ayn couldn't stand it anymore, so she came out to scold them. The two of them immediately stopped crying and wiped away their tears. They first opened the white cloth covering the corpse and saw that it was a man who was seriously injured in the car accident. There was a hole in his head, and the two of them were immediately frightened and hurriedly covered the cloth. When Zhao Shumi heard that her son wasn't dead, she immediately smiled happily. "That's great. Ting Young's all right." Xu Yanchen smiled pretentiously as well. The two of them stood outside the ICU, looking at Ting Young with mixed feelings. I was too agitated just now and didn't recognize him. I'm glad that Ting Young is all right. My son is working so hard every day. I'll make him some soup to nourish his body." Zhao Shumi excused herself with an embarrassing expression. Just then, the doctor came in with a report and looked at Li Euro solemnly. "Deputy Director Lee, Director Lance's test came out. According to this CAT scan and the x-rays taken, his conditions isn't very good. First, he has a serious gastric illness. Please take a look at this CAT scan. Due to a long period of high-pressure work, the blood vessels in his brains are blocked. Hence, judging from this, the cause of his facing wasn't the gastric problem. It was the blockage of blood vessels in his brain. Based on the level of blockage, he couldn't perform surgery, and if he did, he would easily cause hemorrhaging. Hence, I suggest conservative treatment and only rely on medicine to melt the blockage in the blood vessels in the brain. However, Director Lan has a serious gastric illness, and taking medicine can cause great damage to the stomach. If this goes on, it will easily develop into gastric cancer, so you should make a decision." Li Euro was thunderstruck by his words. She had always thought that her husband was in good health, but she didn't expect him to have such a serious illness. Make up her mind. Ayn, who was behind her, frowned. She took the documentary and looked at it seriously. She had an idea. "Uncle Lee, I would like to use Chinese medicine to open up my father's blood vessels. Some Chinese medicine has the effect of promoting blood circulation and relaxing blood vessels. In a situation like my father's, will it work if I increase the dosage?" Ayn studied traditional Chinese medicine, and of course she could use Chinese traditional medicine to treat him. Li Gong felt that this method was feasible, but it was a little risky. "Your method is good, but your father won't be able to drag this out for long." If he doesn't use imported medicine to slow down his condition, he could easily suffer from cerebral hemorrhaging. Chinese medicine's effective is so slow, so if we increase the dose rashly and don't control the dosage well, it's possible for him to suffer from a hemorrhage. I think this method is a little risky. Li Gong didn't want to agree with this method, as he preferred a safe and conservative method. But my father can't wait any longer. You're right about his condition. He will easily suffer from cerebral hemorrhaging. Those imported medicines can only delay the illness and can't treat the root problem. Don't worry, I will be responsible if anything happens. From now on, I will be my dad's attending physician. An Ran made this decision firmly. Li Gong and Li Ru were both surprised. An Ran was young, but she was so decisive. An Ran, your father's illness came too suddenly. We can't take the risk. Li Ru was afraid that An Ran was too young and inexperienced. This was a life, and he was also her father. Mom, I've decided. I'm going to look for Chinese medicine. Have you forgotten that I was in first place in the medicine exam? Besides, I prepared all the medicine you used last time and you were ill. Don't worry, it'll be alright. Anna didn't give her a chance to retort. Every second now was a race against time. The accent heard everything from outside and she smiled evilly. It seemed that Ting Young wouldn't live long, which meant she had a chance. The moment Ayn Rand opened the door, she saw Yaxin eavesdropping. My dad is inside. Don't try to harm him or I won't forgive you. She walked away and Yaxin stretched her head in to check. She was relieved to see Ting Young wasn't in a good condition. Yaxin walked over, putting on a sad expression. Don't be sad. Uncle will be better. Yero ignored her. She was frustrated enough and was very worried about Ting Young's condition. But she was more worried that if her daughter couldn't treat her father, not only would her medical career be ruined, but she would also be accused of murdering her own father. At this moment, Li Gong took out a disclaimer. This disclaimer usually came out after a disagreement between a doctor and a patient, and when the patient insisted on his actions, the hospital would prepare a disclaimer so that the person in charge wouldn't be implicated in the future. Even if the patient was the director of the hospital, he had to sign it. Leo hesitated for a long time. She looked at her husband on the hospital bed. She was very afraid of losing him, but she was even more afraid of the possible repercussions for her daughter because of this incident. If something went wrong, she might regret it for the rest of her life. I heard everything you said just now. If there's even a trace of hope, we should try to save second uncle. What if we succeed? Yaxin's original intention was to get Ayn Rand to save Ting Young. With her abilities, she definitely wasn't capable enough to treat illnesses and save people. If Ting Young died because of her, she wouldn't just be accused of murdering her father, she would also be chased out of the Lan family. Her medical career would come to an end and she would experience a lifetime of psychological torture. This is what she wanted. Leo hesitated again and again, and not listening to Yaxin. She felt that her daughter was still young and just anxious to save her father, which was why she made such a childish decision. Even if she came in first place in the competition, she couldn't treat her father as an experimental subject in her life. She pushed the waiver out. I won't sign it. Just give Ting Young his medicine as soon as possible. I'll explain it to Ayn Rand. He doesn't have gastric cancer yet, so it'll take some time. Yero chose the conservative treatment. Chapter 347, Chinese Medicinal Juice. Ayn Rand left the hospital and quickly went back to the countryside. She needed to find medicine that could soften blood vessels and promote blood circulation and status. There should be many herbs in her herb garden, and she wanted these herbs to be mixed together into reagents. However, those herbs needed time, and her father's condition was too serious, so he couldn't wait that long. Hence, she was only picking some herbs and turned it into a herb juice to test the effects. There were many herbs in the herb garden that she needed. She picked the herbs and minced them into a herbal juice. But what she needed was the blood to test the effects. She looked around and took out a white mouse from the cage. The knife pierced through its flesh and blood flowed out. When the blood congealated, she took out some and placed it on a petri dish. As expected, the blood started to melt, but it was slow. Anna seemed to have glimpsed a thread of hope, but she also felt that something was missing. She thought that ginseng would speed up the blood flow. However, she didn't have such things. Anna took out her phone and told Fatty to buy some ginseng from the pharmacy immediately, asking for the best. Fatty ran to the largest pharmacy in Wrong City, the Good Medicine Home, and bought the biggest ginseng, sending it to the herb garden in the countryside. Boss, what exactly happened? Panting, Fatty looked at the blood all over the ground, wondering what happened here. My dad is ill and I urgently needed medicine. I'm currently researching a type of thrombotic medicine. Aaron was anxious. There should be someone who has used such medicine in competition. Can't boss just find it? Fatty spoke easily. The medicine is all talk, but there's no actual use. If we were to pick up the medicine, I'm afraid it wouldn't take a long time. My dad can't wait. Aaron broke the ginseng, squeezed it, and threw some of the juice into the medicine. She dropped the medicine into the blood, and the congealed blood started to dissolve. Aaron thought that it was more convenient to turn it into medicine, but she didn't have time now. She put the medicine in the test tube and ran to the hospital. It had only been 3 hours since she left. When Shi Yanchen returned home and heard that Ting Young was seriously ill and that Aaron had taken the initiative to treat her father, she was overjoyed. That's great. I want to see how capable that brat is. If he can't be cured, we'll chase her out of the house and accuse her of murder, making her ashamed. Sashimi couldn't help but be worried. He was her son after all. If he died, she wouldn't be able to enjoy her life anymore, let alone enjoy her in retirement. It's great if she can't treat illnesses. I think Ting Young needs a doctor to treat his illness. Why is a little girl getting involved? Shi Yanchen? You should talk to Yuro. She can't listen to a child's nonsense. This is a life. Shi Yanchen smiled. Mom, don't worry. I know what to do. I know you feel bad for Ting Young. We have to use this opportunity to get rid of Ayn Rand. Nothing will happen to him. That may be true, but I'm still worried. If something happens to Ting Young, we won't be able to get a meal, let alone a pension. Nothing can happen to him. Sashimi thought about it, how she would rely on Ting Young for the rest of her life. Now that Ting Yi was in prison, she didn't know if he had much money to send her off or when he came out. The key was still Ting Young. If Ting Young was gone, she wouldn't have much hope. Mom, don't worry. Make some porridge and send it to Ting Young. Jackson is still waiting for Mo Jinrong in the hospital. I wonder if he knows about this. Shi Yanchen was most worried about her daughter's future. Sashimi turned to the kitchen to cook porridge. She remembered that Ting Young's favorite food in the past was scalloped pork. Unfortunately, she was penniless now and didn't have any in the fridge, so she could only make some simple millet porridge. In the hospital, Leo called Yan Ren to inform him that his father was ill. Yan Ren hung up the phone and ran towards the hospital immediately. He clearly remembered the call that he received not long ago. Back then, he was full of vitality. How did he fall? Mom, how's Dad? Yan Ren, don't worry. His uncle will be alright. Yaxin comforted him by the side, unable to conceal joy in her sorrowful eyes. My dad is sick. Why are you smiling? Are you happy? Yan Ren glared at her angrily. Yan Ren, you've misunderstood. I didn't. Okay, stop fighting. This is the hospital. Keep quiet. Yaxin, go back. You can't be much help here. Leah was frustrated for looking at her. She couldn't be much help here and was only causing trouble. It's alright, Aunt. I'll keep Uncle company. This is a big hospital and you have to take care of Uncle and busy yourself with the hospital matter. You definitely won't be able to keep up. Yaxin was very understanding. At this moment, the doctor walked in with several bottles of medicine. Deputy Director Lee, the medicine here is the best imported. Let's give it a try. Leo nodded and got someone to bring up the medicine. Mom, will Dad die? Yanon was suddenly very scared. He saw his father lying on the bed with tubes and a respiratory mask, just like his mother did the last time. He thought of this terrible thing and felt a chill run up his spine. Nonsense, your father will get better. Leo spoke harshly. Suddenly, Anran returned, sweating and panting. Mom, I'm back. She didn't have time to wipe the sweat off her forehead and rushed in. When she saw that they were about to give her father the latest important medicine, she immediately shouted, Wait, use my medicine. Li Gong turned and saw Anran panting and sweating at the door. He nodded at Li Yuro. Anran, what are you doing? Your father's life is in danger. How could we let you do whatever you want? What if you affect his condition? Li Yuro stepped forward and persuaded her solemnly. She couldn't watch her daughter harm her father. Anran was very determined. She had to save her father. She picked up the imported medicine and looked at it, frowning. Mom, Uncle Lee, the ingredients used in the imported medicine have a delayed effect on Dad's condition. But the medicine is very harmful to his body. My medicine isn't affected on the stomach. It directly enters the blood vessels and clears the blood vessels. Although it can't be said to be effective in a one-shot, I believe that it will definitely be better than the imported medicine. Just trust me once. I will definitely be able to treat Dad. Anna explained seriously. She believed that Chinese medicine was much better than the imported one. Suddenly, Tingyun became faintly conscious. He opened his mouth as he wanted to say something. Anna noticed her father's abnormality and hurriedly took off his oxygen mask. Chapter 348, Treating Lan Tingyun. Dad, what are you trying to say? Anran helped Tingyun up and placed her ear next to his mouth. Tingyun struggled to squeeze out these few words. I believe you. Anran turned her head and looked at her father in disbelief, tears welling up in her eyes. Mom, did you hear that? Dad said to believe me. Anran was moved to tears. Yuro didn't insist and finally relented. Since your father believes you, I have nothing more to say. From now on, Dr. Lee, Anran will be her father's attending physician. Anran hurriedly took out the herb juice from her bag, quickly unscrewing the cap, and helped Tingyun up, and fed him the herb juice. Anran, what medicine is that? Leo looked at the green herb juice curiously. There were no impurities inside. This is a Chinese herb juice that can promote blood circulation and remove blood status. This is just a tube. I wanted to make it into a reagent, but there wasn't enough time. So after drinking this tube, Dad will have to drink a few more before it becomes effective. Anran felt relieved after seeing her father drink the juice. Sis, do you really have a way to save Dad? Yanran asked in tears. Don't worry, trust me. Dad will be alright. Anran spoke easily. She felt Tingyun's pulse again. There wasn't much of a reaction, so she needed to continue to observe him. Sis, second uncle must be sick and confused. This is a matter of life or death. We're all students. What if... Shut up. Just because you don't have the ability doesn't mean she doesn't. Yanran rolled his eyes at her. You what? You can go back now. The final exam is about to start. If you don't do well, the school beauty will become a joke. Yanran sneered. I am not leaving. Grandma went back to make some porridge and instructed me to stay here to look after second uncle. I'll have to report to her as soon as possible if anything happens. Yaxin wasn't just here to monitor Tingyun's condition. She was also waiting for Mo Junrong. She couldn't enter his company, and she didn't have his contact information, so she could only wait here. As expected of a spy, Yanran was upset. Yanran, don't think just because you're a star, don't treat people like humans. We care about second uncle sincerely, Yaxin retorted. Yaxin, I haven't asked you yet. Why did you make use of my name and become a big scene online? You're answering nonsense online, even making up lies to accuse me. I advise you to stop early. I have to send you my lawyer's letter. If you continue to do this, I will call the police and have them arrest you, Yanran warned. Yanran, now that you're famous, you don't respect your sister anymore? Not far away, Xu Yanshan's sharp and piercing voice was heard. What's with that noise? Doesn't Tingyun need rest now? This is a hospital. Liura was impatient. Sashimi wasn't angry. Instead, she was unusually kind. Yuro, how is Tingyun? Mom, Tingyun is feeling better after taking Anran's medicine. Liura smiled bitterly. In the past, old Mrs. Lan didn't seem to care about Tingyun's fevers or flu. But now that he was lying in the hospital bed and couldn't move, she came over to fawn on him. She wondered what she was up to. Anran's medicine? Isn't that nonsense? Tingyun is sick, and I heard from Yaxin that his blood vessels are blocked, and it caused trouble. Anran is just a student now. And even though she must be very capable to come first in the competition, she is just a student. You dare to let her treat Tingyun? Are you hoping that it'll pass away? Zhao Shimi was furious. As a doctor, she knew how dangerous this illness was. Mom, what are you saying? I am his wife. I'll have to accompany him for so many years. How could I harm him? This is Tingyun's own request. I believe her, and Tingyun believes her. Liura was a little angry. She had accompanied Tingyun all these years, sharing joys and sorrows. How could she have the heart to harm him? There are blood clots in Tingyun's brain, so if his brain isn't clear at all, don't you have a clear head as well? Sashimi cursed. Yo, this is risky. Anran has some abilities, but this is just a competition after all. Let's just talk. Firstly, she doesn't have a doctor's license, and secondly, she doesn't have any real experience. How could she treat Tingyan's illness? If his condition is delayed, what will happen to Mom in the hospital? Xu Yanchen seemed troubled. The medicine has been taken, and whatever you say is useless. Let's wait and see the results. Anran didn't want to hear their nonsense. You're killing your father! Even though he didn't raise you since you were a child, you can't treat him like this. It's a sin. Anran, if anything happens to your father because of your treatment, you'll have to leave the Lan family. Sashimi wanted to use this opportunity to get rid of Anran, this Scrooge. How could a child know medicine skills? She's just making a fool of us. He is her biological father, and yet you treat him like this. You have a malicious heart, Anran. If you're sensible, you should stop now. It wouldn't be good if you end up with a bad name. Xu Yanchen spoke triumphantly from the side. You're disturbing me. Dad is resting. Hurry up and shut up. Anran was frustrated by their noise. What kind of attitude is that? I kindly brought your father porridge and thought that you didn't prepare anything to eat for him. But now it became my fault. Sashimi felt wrong. Anran glanced at the porridge and smiled. My father is lying here wearing a mask. How is he supposed to eat? Besides, this kind of millet porridge can only fill one stomach. Are you going to let us share a bowl with you? This is outrageous. You're treating my kindness as a malicious intent. Why are you like this? Sashimi turned angrily and threw the porridge in her hand into the trash can. She sat at the side like an angry child. Anran ignored her and turned to speak to her mother. Mom, you're tired too. It's already so late. Go take a break. Anran and I will take care of things here. No, I want to stay with your father. I can't let anything happen to him. Liu sat down directly on a chair next to the hospital bed, looking uneasy. Sis, does Mojinran know that Uncle is ill? You should call him over. I think he'll be able to give him the best treatment. Yaxin tried to find out Mojinran's whereabouts. Chapter 349, Successfully Entering the Mo Villa. The Mo family is so rich, wouldn't he have to pay more attention if his father-in-law fell ill? Xu Yanchen was hoping that Mojinran would come over and establish a relationship with her daughter. I didn't tell him. It's too late now. We can talk about it tomorrow. Dad's condition is stable now. Anran knew what Yaxin was doing, but she didn't give her the chance. Xu Yanchen looked at old Mrs. Lan helplessly and smiled. Yaxin, go back first. You have class tomorrow, so remember to help Anran take the day off. Yaxin understood Xu Yanchen's intentions. Sis, don't forget that the final exam is the day after tomorrow. Yaxin carried her bag angrily and walked out of the hospital. It seemed that Mojinran wouldn't be coming tonight. She might as well walk straight into the residence. She will succeed today. At the Mo family, Mojinran still wasn't sleeping despite it being so late at night. Instead, he sat in the study room and carefully recalled Mo Shangli's appearance. After so many years, he had forgotten what he looked like. Young master, it's late. You should rest. Mo-san looked at the light in the study room and walked in. Mo-san, why do you think he did it? Mojinran didn't understand. Old Mrs. Mo still thought Mo Shangli was here to see her. That's how people are, young master. You can't always read between the lines. There's something going on at the company tomorrow, so you should rest early, Mo-san persuaded him. You go first. How could Mojinran still sleep? Suddenly the doorbell rang. Mo-san wondered if Mo Shangli had come over. After all, it was already so late and no one was here. Young master, be careful. I'll go take a look. It's already so late. It might be a prank. Mo-san opened the door and was a little surprised to see Yaxin. Miss Lan, it's already so late. Is there something urgent that you come here alone? Yaxin appeared very nervous and kept looking behind her, gasping for breath like a drama queen. Hurry and save me. I'm being followed. Mo-san looked behind her. It was pitch black and there was no one there. But for the sake of safety, he let Yaxin in. Miss Lan, please wait here for a moment. I'll bring young master immediately. Mo-san turned to go upstairs. Yaxin took the opportunity to take out the yellow liquid from her pocket, poured it into the kettle in front of her, and poured the water into a cup. Today was the day she became Mrs. Mo. Upstairs, Mojinran was a little surprised to hear that Yaxin was here. It's already so late. What is she doing here? Mo-san shook his head. She said that she was being followed and came here in a hurry. She's just a girl and wouldn't be safe if she walked alone in the middle of the night, so I let her in. Mojang went downstairs and saw Yaxin sitting alone in the living room, looking pitiful. What are you doing here? The girl looked innocent in the surface, but she was extremely evil on the inside. He wouldn't be fooled by her. Brother-in-law, Yaxin pretended to be anxious again. When she saw Mojang, she hurried over to hug him. Mojang pushed her aside. Brother-in-law, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. I was just too scared. Someone was really following me. In order to get closer to Mojang, Yaxin thought of this method along the way, which would make her seem weak and pitiful, while also allowing her to get closer to Mojang smoothly. Why were you near my house? Mojang asked again. Brother-in-law, I actually wanted to talk to you that uncle is ill, but sis didn't want to trouble you. But I thought I should tell you that she is secretly prescribing medicine for him, although she is just a student. How could she treat illnesses and save people? Hurry and persuade her not to. Second uncle is her biological father, so she's harming him by doing so. Our entire family relies on him. If he isn't around anymore, what will happen to us in the future? Grandma won't even have someone to send her off in her old age. Yaxin started to cry as she spoke. How is Anran? Mojang spoke nervously. Sis is very stubborn. She got some herbal juice from somewhere and fed it to second uncle. Before I left, there was no response. I think Sis is blaming second uncle for sending her back to the countryside. She may seem understanding, but I know that's not the case. Ever since she came back and her father was in jail. Ever since she came back and my father was in jail, Grandma has been fighting with second uncle every day. The entire Land family is in chaos. In fact, I didn't have any ill intentions. I just wanted the Land family to be safe and sound. Yaxin pretended to be innocent. She seemed harmless, but in reality, every word was trying to sow discord. Mojang didn't say anything about this, as he knew it in his heart. Some of the women he had seen before had better tricks than this little girl. Brother-in-law, I know how I treated you in the past, and I might have misunderstood. I didn't come here today to explain everything. I admit that I like you, but I won't fight with Sis over you. I really just want us to live peacefully, so please hurry up and persuade her. When Yaxin saw that Mojang didn't speak, she thought that she had succeeded in sowing discord. Otherwise, he would have retorted by now. Miss Land, don't come over so late next time. It's dangerous for a girl to travel alone. Musan interrupted. Your sister is free to do what she wishes. If you're only here because of this, I understand, and you can leave now. Mojang was annoyed. This kind of girl was sowing dissension in front of him, and she treated him like a fool. Brother-in-law, if you forgive me, please drink this cup of tea in place of wine as a sign of your forgiveness. Yaxin handed the cup of water to Mojang. Mojang looked at the cup cautiously. He never drank anything that was given to him, and the cup didn't seem very pure. I won't drink anything tonight. Musan, take her home. Mojang spoke coldly. Brother-in-law, I don't want to go back. I quarreled with my family. Can't I stay here? I'm afraid someone is following me. Yaxin looked scared. She placed the cup down and curled up on the sofa. Miss Lan, young master doesn't have an extra room for you, nor does he have any female clothes here. The young master doesn't live here either. I think you should go back. Musan persuaded. No, I'm not going back. I can sleep on the sofa. Brother-in-law, can't you let me sleep over just for one night? Musan's heart ached at Yaxin's pitiful appearance. Young master, why don't you let her sleep in my room while I sleep on the sofa? Musan couldn't stand such bleeding eyes. Is the Mo family sofa something anyone can sleep on? If you want to stay, feel free. Since he couldn't chase her away, he would just let her be. Yaxin was ecstatic. She finally had a chance to get close to Mojang. In the middle of the night, while they were both asleep, Yaxin secretly placed the cup of yellow liquid in the kitchen, preparing to save it for Mojang's breakfast in the morning. She didn't have a chance today, but she would in the future. Chapter 350. Annoying paparazzi. The next day, Yaxin woke up early. She first baked bread, poured a cup of milk, fried an egg, and made a steamed egg with the yellow liquid from last night. Mojang was sleepy in the morning. He glanced at his watch and realized that he had overslept. He hurried downstairs, buttoning his sleeves as he complained. What happened? Who turned off my alarm? Are you awake? I was afraid that the alarm would wake you, so I turned it off. Are you hungry? Yaxin felt wronged. Mojang didn't reply, directly entering the washroom to wash up. Miss Lan, did you make this? Mo-san looked at the scrumptious breakfast on the table and thought. Yes, I woke up early today and was a little hungry, so I also made breakfast for everyone. Yaksen smiled. Usually she wouldn't touch water, but today, for Mojinran's sake, she had looked at a recipe that wasn't too difficult to cook. Mojinran washed up quickly and was about to leave. Brother-in-law, you haven't had breakfast yet. Yaksen called out hurriedly. I'm not eating anymore. I hope that you can leave before I come back from work. Mojinran got into the car without turning back. Mo-san was craving the steamed egg on the table, so he picked it up and finished it quickly. Butler Mo, you... Yaksen turned around, glaring at Mo-san. Her steamed egg was going to benefit him? Sorry, it's too delicious. Mo-san slipped into the car after speaking. Yaksen was a little nervous. Yellow liquid was, or the consequences of eating it. Brother-in-law. The car drove away and missed Yaksen's call. Young master, why didn't Miss Lan tell you about Ting Young's illness? Yaksen seems to be very thoughtful about this. Mo-san asked curiously. Pursue her if you like her thoughtfulness. Let's go to the hospital now. Mojinran spoke expressionlessly. I'm not blessed. Girls like Miss Lan aren't easy to provoke. I don't want to be a henpecked husband. Mo-san shook his head. At the hospital, Anran guarded the hospital bed the entire night and had fallen asleep on the bed. Sis, Dad moved. The second Yanran opened his eyes, he saw Ting Young blink several times. Anran was startled awake and she hurriedly felt Ting Young's pulse. Although his pulse was stronger than yesterday, he was still short of breath and generally weaker. She took out the remaining herbal juice from her bag and poured it down Ting Young's throat. She didn't dare to use too much in fear that the medicine would be too violent, cause his blood to circulation to accelerate. Ting Young might not be able to take it, so she only gave him half a dosage. Leo had woken up and she saw that her children were awake. She hurriedly over to check on him. How is your father? Don't worry, his condition is better than yesterday. I suggest letting Uncle Lee take a CAT scan for his brain to check the blood vessels. Anran wanted to see the condition of the blood vessels in Ting Young's brain. It'd be easier to prescribe the medicine then. Yorosi, he hasn't improved at all. Aren't your children just making a fuss? In my opinion, we should quickly transfer Ting Young to another hospital. Mojinran's family is so rich, so we should get his help. He will definitely be able to find the best doctor for Ting Young. There can't be any problems with my son. Ting Yi is in jail and I only have one son left. Ting Young, you can't die. Zhao Shumi covered her face and cried as she spoke, sobbing on the bed. Shut up, my dad isn't dead yet. Why are you crying? Anran glared at Zhao Shumi impatiently. I'm crying about my son. Why are you so unfile? Zhao Shumi retorted. Suddenly, outside the ICU, a group of irrelevant people poked their heads into the room. The hero didn't understand what had happened and hurriedly went out to look. Who are you? What are you doing here? Are you Lan Yanran's mother? I heard that his father was hospitalized. Is that true? We're reporters and we wanted to visit. A man with a sign poked his head inside. Liu retorted angrily. This is the ICU. The patient needs to rest. Hurry and leave or I'll call security. Yanran didn't expect the group of reporters to come over to take photos of his father when he was ill. He walked out impatiently and roared a few words. What are you taking photos for? My dad is sick, and if you disturb him, he won't be able to get a good rest. Are you going to be held accountable? Get out now. You're not welcomed here. A few reporters were enraged. They carried their cameras and took photos of their faces while yelling angrily. Who do you think you are? Don't you know that you relied on us reporters to support you? Without us, who could have made you famous? Now that you're acting so arrogantly in front of us, do you believe that we won't expose you to make it impossible for you to survive in the entertainment industry? Hurry up and film this person's face. If you don't want this matter to end, don't even think about ending it without 10 million yuan blocking our mouths. The cameras flashed and several reporters started to threaten them. I'm quitting the entertainment industry today. I'm quitting and I won't give you the money. If you want to be exposed, go ahead. I'm frustrated enough that my dad is sick here. What more do you want? Yanran was furious. His eyes were wide open and bloodshot. He felt like his entire body was on fire. If you don't leave now, I'm going to call security, Liu threatened.